Hi, I'm Linda Deir, the author of Guided. Her spirit guide angels were her best friends and life coaches. Guided is my true life story and winner of the 2017 International Body, Mind, Spirit Book Award. Since before I was 2 years old, I've seen, communicated with, and even photographed my spirit guide angels. In Guided, I use my own life as a template to teach you what I learned from these loving, intelligent spirits. Most importantly, I show you how to make the connection to your own spirit guides and angel, so you can live a guided life, a life free of fear and doubt, the life you intended to live before you got here. In my guided journey, the companion journal to Guided, Part 2, page 13, I will be talking about the fear returns, along with the disappointment. Moving into your early teens, you worried about everything now. You forgot what you learned from us. You forgot who you are. In your attempt to fill the void, you sought friends. They disappointed you time and again. After what we had, you expected friendships to be easy. So let's get started. You are really feeling the pressure intensify in everything you are doing. It's been building up to this point, and your life is not getting easier. In fact, you feel lonelier than you ever have before. You have friends, and they are all feeling the same fear controlling them. They are fearful of not being liked, or pretty enough, or smart enough, or good enough. Everyone is facing these same insecurities, which makes it even more devastating when the mean kids aim their cruel attacks at you. To them, it's funny to watch your ego struggle to match or outsmart theirs. In reality, this is all just a test to see how healthy or unhealthy your ego really is. How much have you allowed fear to control your life, your awareness, and your connection to your real self, and even us? When your ego is playing the dominant role in your life, it takes everything personally, preventing you from seeing what is really going on. Did your ego take over, making you feel even worse than you already did? Or did you fight back? Admittedly, it's a very challenging time in your life. It's also a very powerful time in your life because your body was amped up with hormonal changes. This literally gave you a new identity. However, the decisions you made in your earlier years finally have an opportunity to come to life. Although this felt liberating, the path you chose was generated from those early decisions when you had little information to come to those conclusions. An analogy would be, you have a new car that looks really good, but the engine is underpowered and not completely reliable. This is why you felt like you were faking it most of the time. You didn't feel like you. Not the you who you used to be before all these changes started, but the real you with this new identity. Imagine what this new identity would have felt like had you been fully present with yourself intact, the real you who originally came here, along with the one you have become in this world. That would be like the new car that looks really good with an engine that's powerful and reliable. To the degree that you felt underpowered and ill-prepared when your new identity showed up is a measurement of how separate you were from your real self and us. These powerful feelings were guidance attempting to get your attention so you could make a course correction. However, these changes also amped up your ego. It was like an inner war was going on, jostling for position and dominance. This was the barrier that prevented your true self from participating in your life. Your real self didn't go anywhere. It remained in the same place you left it. It knows itself. It's not fearful. And it's there when you are ready. It's not loud or pushy. But you have to reach for it to bring it back into your life so your life starts working again. And you can begin to fulfill your purpose here. Everything that happened up to this point, beneficial or not, determine how you would make these life-altering decisions that has carved out your life so far. That real part of you that you mostly left behind is calm and truthful. It sees everything for what it is and not something you made up because it's what you want to believe. Take a moment to feel the difference. This is how you will reconnect to your inner guidance. Write down what all this felt like in your early teens to identify what happened in order to free yourself from the fear that has controlled your life up to this point.
Hi, dear. Happy first day of fall.
Yeah, first day of fall, you guys.
First day of fall.
All right, so we're going to talk about this, and this is all about taking you back to the time in your life when this would be early teens, page 13 of part 2, The Fear Returns.
Page 13, and it starts about age 13, high school, right?
Well, that's a coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so when I say the fear returns, what I mean by that is in My Guided Journey, part 2, page 1, it starts out with fear, okay? So the fear returns, it means that all the way up to this point in your life, you experienced how fear and either allowed it to control you or not. And this is like a testing time where you're having a second shot at it. And it does return, and your insecurities are larger than ever, and you know more now. And so you've got more to be fearful of if what you did in the previous, say, 13 years has been fear-based. So that's what Ray's going to ask me some questions about this and give you guys a little more insight into what happens when the fear returns. You can identify what that was in your own life. Write it into page 13 of part 2 of My Guided Journey. And as we go through this, part 2, page 1 through 18, when we get to 18, we're going to have you guys come in and talk about how this progressed in your life so you can see what happened and make new decisions now, ensuring that you get to live the life that you intended before you got here.
Very good. Well, back in the beginning, you said moving into your early teens, you worried about everything now.
Yeah.
You forgot what you learned when you grew up with them. Okay? So my question is, what do you think is the root cause of all this worrying? Is it acceptance? Is it the desire to be like others? Is that why you're worrying?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's about it. When you start to worry, it's like self-abuse. Think of worry as self-abuse. Anytime you catch yourself worrying, you're abusing yourself. All right, and it's because of something you have in your head where you connected with something that is unhealthy and not true, and it's not your opinion of yourself if you were left to your own free will. All right. So it's what somebody else might have said just to be mean for a moment, to make themselves feel better, to feel better if they hurt and you hurt, then they're in good company. So it's the way of the world, and Yeah, it happens through worry. Yeah.
Right. So what's this big, strong attraction to be liked by others? Why is that so important? You didn't think about that when you were a baby.
Well,
early on.
Here's how I feel about it. Okay, from what I remember in part 1 of Guided, the merry-go-round dream, and what I realized and how it caught me off guard, and how I was woken up in this world even before 20 months old. I mean, I couldn't believe what was going on, and I couldn't stop it. When I was really, really young and I first met these guides, I was terrified. I didn't have time to worry about if I was accepted or not. I was more fearful of my life, of saving my life, because of what my mom put me through. By the time I met my own guides, I never had to be challenged with that to a great extent. I mean, when I went to school, I noticed how the kids laughed at me and they thought I was different. That's another
Quite an odd child.
And, you know, just how I just didn't really think about how they thought about me, and how they ganged up and talked about me and did all this kind of stuff. I noticed what they did, but I didn't have any connection to it. I just didn't feel connected to it. I had this awareness early in my life from my guides where I realized that it was about not taking things personally. I realized that at 20 months old. I mean, what I'm trying to say to you guys is you've got to identify where you first went off the rails, all right? And that's what this My Guided Journey does, part 1. I can't help but go back to the beginning when Ray asked me that question, because I thought you've got to identify where the fear first started, because that's where the worry began. That's where everything started to take you out of away from who you are. It made you doubt yourself, and it caused you to be shocked into this world, over-invested into this world, making this more than it was, making this bigger than it was, okay? For me, the kids used to say all the time, "You don't get it, Linda." That was one of the biggest things they used to say to me. And they were right. I didn't get it. It's because I was still in one piece. I was in one piece and they weren't. They were over here. And they were the ones that were worried, and they were the ones that were attacking each other. And they were the ones, you know, trying to intimidate each other. They were the ones involved in that. I watched it and I kept going and walking on by. I mean, it's not that I didn't feel hurt by it at some point, and sometimes, because you can't help it when it's right in your face. But in my retaliation was to beat the boys up. So I fought them, you know. I reacted to it. It's not like I floated through this without any bumps and scrapes. I totally did. I mean, there's consequences no matter which path you choose. So that was my choice, and that's the way I handled it. That's my reality, Ray. You know? That's why I know you need to start from the beginning, because until you do that, can you clean the slate and start coming from a place that makes some sense in your life, so your life starts making sense. Yeah.
Well, my upbringing was definitely different than yours. I mean, you weren't looking, from the time you went to school in kindergarten, you weren't looking for people to accept you.
No.
Because they didn't want to accept you for how you were.
Right.
They didn't want to be like you.
No, they didn't want to be like me. No.
Right. But what drives this acceptance thing is they all want to be alike. So here's my next question. If you could just be yourself by the time you get to high school.
You mean your real self?
Your real self.
Right.
Wouldn't others who felt comfortable being themselves gravitate to each other?
They would. That would happen.
And then they're being like others. They're being accepted for who they are.
Now, why would they be?
Because they're all comfortable in their own skin. They're all comfortable with who they are.
Okay.
So,
okay. It doesn't mean that you'll be accepted by the other kids. If the other kids don't know who they are, see, when you know who you are, your ego doesn't dominate you. It doesn't just control you over here all the time. You still have yourself intact. So the two of them learned how to play together. They learned how to work together. They learned how to be together and grow through this life, not go through this life. Okay, the ego's all about going somewhere. When you're in one piece, when you are in one piece, you're growing through your life. So you're always learning new things. You're always finding out interesting things from other people. You're always interested in what's going on. You're amazed by your life. The people in their ego are insecure. They're trying to hold on to what they have. They're trying to keep their egos intact and everything that it relates to, like the clothes they wear, how cute they look. What, they say exactly the right thing. They have the right boyfriends and girlfriends, and it's all about image and what things appear to look like. Where over here, it's who you really are, okay? And when you're up against that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be accepted, okay? In fact, if you're who you are and you have your own little group of people that are who you are, you'll be that far apart from these people over here. You'll never fit in. Not with this, okay? So no, you will not fit in.
Okay. So, next question is, how does a kid who's seeking acceptance, all right, from a group, not take things personally? Is there some kind of compromise in there that they have to go through?
Okay, no. What you have to do it?
Yeah, they're seeking acceptance in whatever group they're trying to, appeal to. How do they not take things personally?
Well, if you try to seek acceptance and you get rejected, and you go back the second time.
What happens the second? Suppose you get rejected again.
Well, that's where everything goes south.
Right.
You said when do they start taking it personally? You don't. If you take it personally the first time you get rejected, then you're invested in your ego. You know that you're a target for those kids. That's what you find out. So there is no way to prevent yourself from taking it personally if you're already invested in being liked by these people. The other side of it would be if you're not invested in being liked by these people, and you try to join their group, you try to become part of their group, and they just go, no, we don't want you in our group. And then your healthy ego says, oh, okay, well then I'll just go find another group. And you would, and you wouldn't take it personally. You might go, well, that wasn't very nice of them, the way they handled it, or I would have handled it differently. You're not taking it personally in the sense that you're letting it control you, and you feel like a loser, all right? So that's the difference between the two.
Moving right along from that, you're a kid, you're seeking acceptance, you get rejected once, you go back again, you get rejected again. That's now you realize I'm not good enough. You take it personally.
Okay, that's when you won't stop going back for more.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
If you don't go back for more, you don't have that problem.
That's right. Now, so being as you are, there's all these different groups in high school, okay? There's the geeks, the computer geeks, the athletes, the cool kids,
You mean that think they're cool?
Well, they're in that little cool group. And then there's the brainiac kids, the real smart kids. Mm-hmm. And isn't being who you are good enough? I mean, I was on the chess team. Come on, all right? Don't you naturally gravitate, if you want to be a nerd that's accepted, right? A computer geek that's accepted by the athletes, that's kind of, or the cool kids, that's kind of like, that doesn't fit. That's like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. The cool guys, the athletes, the cool kids are not going to hang out with the guys in the chess team.
Right.
Okay? So, isn't it good enough just to be in a group of people just like you?
Well, only if you have kept yourself intact. Only if you feel good about yourself. Only if you like and approve of yourself. If you're just living over here, you don't approve of yourself. You don't like yourself. You're not connected to your real self. You're 100% ego-based, okay? And you're relying on everybody to, everybody's opinion of you. You're relying on them thinking that you look beautiful or that you have really pretty clothes, or you're relying on everything that's external, okay? Where the kid that's playing chess and he's really enjoying himself. You loved it, right?
I was Mr. Chess Team Radio Club.
Okay.
You know.
Then he was totally invested in that. Did he take time to think about what these like the so-called cool kids were saying about him or thinking about him? Did you?
I mean, I went to school with him. I was in the same classes with him, but no, I never thought about what do the athlete crowd, what do they think of me? I really didn't care.
So, and I can tell you with Ray, because we've been together now for 14 years almost, he doesn't, if somebody doesn't like him or somebody, if there's no connection, Ray doesn't stick around for more. He just moves through it. He doesn't stick around for it. In other words, Ray loves himself enough to move on and not to really take that personally. Sometimes he does, you guys.
But I think at that point,
Just sometimes.
at that point in my life in high school, I didn't know what I know now. So I'm thinking back to those days, and I was real comfortable with people who I was smart. I was in the smart group of kids,
Yeah.
okay, but I didn't hang around with them. Interesting.
Yeah.
I did things that challenged my mind, I guess. The chess team,
Right.
the radio club.
And that's the relationship you had with them, and that was it.
Yeah.
You didn't do any other things with them. That's all you did with them. Then you went on and did the other things you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think it didn't bother me that I wasn't accepted by the other groups?
Well, knowing you had so many other things going on.
Yeah.
You didn't have time to really think about it. You had your band. You were teaching music. You were busy, Ray.
That's probably it, because I could have played sports, but
You wouldn't made any money at it.
I didn't.
I know. Ray was about making money.
I was about making money
when he was a kid, and even all his life. So that's your interest was in making money for you represented freedom of choices, and you'd rather have those choices than those people.
Right.
That's what you did. You made that decision. So he knew himself. He followed what his bliss was. He followed that, and he never looked back. And he spent time with those kids. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? You didn't stick around to be disappointed by somebody who didn't want you in their group to begin with. You never wasted your time, Ray.
No.
In fact, you were never connected to it. You had no pull that way. So you never went that way. Okay? It's when you have a pull to go that way, and it's not to your best interest, and you find yourself pulled that way, that you realize that's not the first time it happened. It started before that, okay? That's why in my guided journey, there's 18 pages in this. We're on 13 today, but it led up to that, okay, to this point in your life where now it's like a test. How healthy is your ego? How unhealthy is your ego? How are you doing? And that's really where you're heading into your future now. It's got a hold of you. It's such a strong impulse to keep you alive. You're fearful if you don't do all this stuff and have all these people in your life or do all these things, right? Or go to that great school and do all this stuff. I mean, is it you that wants this, or is it society that wants this? Is it the other kids that are doing it? Is it your parents that want it? Is whatever, the siblings in your life. Okay, you've got to take a look at it. You've got to find out who's operating your life. That's what this is about.
Yeah, I kept myself pretty busy outside of school, whereas the other kids didn't.
Right.
The athletes went to practice, and then they had games on the weekend, and then they had parties,
Oh, I know.
And they all stuck together.
Yep. And I did the same thing. I didn't party with them. I didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't need it. And in my time, and I know Ray's time too, but I lived in California. It was a little bit more liberal.
And warmer.
Yeah. And so in my experience, what the pressure was drugs. That's drugs, alcohol, but drugs really got crazy then. And when the drugs started, when all that began, I just didn't need any of it. I knew right away, I instantly knew in my heart and soul that I just had no use for it. I didn't have an appeal to it. But I knew why the kids did, because they had lived their life up to that point, up to page 13, The Fear Returns. They had lived their life up to that point in without themselves intact, over invested in this world, fear-based, scared, and they doubted themselves. All right. So you take a child who moved through that and survived it, so to speak, and got to this age, say age 12, 13, and they're in their early teens, they're going to start doing things that help them break out of that. The pressure of the pressure over here of not having yourself together and drifting around like a piece of driftwood in the water. I mean, lost, not knowing who you are. Why am I here? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? Get out of here. I mean, they were missing this part. And when they took the drugs, they were trying to find it again. And for a moment, they had it on that high, right? They had it. But then that high went away, and away went their self. And there they were in this cold, stark place again. So that's what I experienced, okay?
I mean, they had to take drugs to get back to feel how they felt when they came in here.
I know.
I mean,
that's the point, right?
That's like a lot of, there's a lot of famous musicians who were heroin addicts, and they did their best work.
I know. Well, what happened in that case is they, in order to overcome their inhibitions, a lot of musicians or singers or whatever, they're very shy people. And they're good, they're great musicians, but they don't come out. They don't really project their voice or their instrument or their talent. And there's examples of that where people that became very famous artists that took heroin to release the inhibition about what someone thought of them, you know, the things that keep you in your ego. And
Ray Charles would be one of those.
Yep, and pushed him through it. Ray Charles actually survived it.
Right.
He actually was able to kick the habit, and by then he had already come out and became a famous star, and he projected already. He wasn't, you know, shy and holding back. So that's what put him back together again. Crazy stuff. But that's how damaging it is, you guys, when you push yourself away, okay, when you're young, and you just live in this world. So, that really is a compromise where you're trying to satisfy your parents, the teachers. You're trying to be the best student. You're trying to, you know, be all these things at the sacrifice of pushing your real self away. You know, bringing them together, it's a balancing act. It does take some skill. It takes more time to figure this all out because you're coming from all of you, okay? You're not just throwing this away, pushing it away, and trying so hard over here, making this so real that it's so hard that it distorts you as a person. That's what happened to these kids that took the drugs in my day, you know, in the 60s, and took the drugs because they couldn't stand the pressure, and they missed who they left behind. And they were trying to bring it back together. That's what that was.
Or alcohol. They get into, a lot of teenagers get into alcohol. And
yeah.
It's kind of interesting to me that alcohol is referred to as spirits.
That is interesting.
They're trying to reconnect with their spirits.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So you can't leave it behind. You'll always have this feeling in here where you know that something's missing, and it keeps calling you. It's a calling. It's an urge. You can't stop it. It's who you are. It's yourself going, you know, you need to bring us back in. You need to bring me back in because your life isn't going to work until we do this together, you know? And the soul, the urge, that soul, who you are, is who brought you here. It's what got you here because it knows why you're here, okay? This doesn't. This keeps chasing outside stuff, trying to feed it. and nothing ever satisfies it.
So getting back to our first question that we talked about already, that the root cause of all this worrying is acceptance. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, can acceptance cause limitations? Because what if this acceptance becomes sort of a plateau? Okay, now I'm doing whatever I have to do to be accepted by the group, and you don't ever go any higher, you never go any lower. Everybody kind of stays the same. I mean, you see that happens in what, high school, college, and
In your job.
30, 40 years later, they're in your 30s and 40s, they're still acting like they did in college.
Yeah, or with your job. You don't do anything new, different. And you start becoming bored. And you're bored with yourself. In other words, again, this inner urge, the part of you that you pushed away, is coming back and reminding you. You forgot about me. You forgot what we came here to do. You forgot what this is about. You forgot. But this will never let you forget, because it's kind of like torment, actually, because
It is torment.
Yeah, it won't leave you alone. It's constantly letting you know that it's why you're here. This other stuff is what you do. You go to your job and you do what you do. You make a living, and then you get back to yourself. Okay. Hopefully you have a job where you can include yourself. Okay. But a lot of people aren't at that point yet. Until you're at that point, do you really have this together? You'll never want for anything. You'll never look at somebody else and go, I wish I was them. Or you'll never look at them and go, I feel like I got cheated and I'd like to have what they have. You'd never feel like that, because you have it all. You have yourself. You have the whole thing. And every day for you is exciting. Every day for you is something new. It's something that you haven't even thought of before, because you activated your real self, and it's constantly feeding you ideas. It's encouraging you to experiment and explore in new ways. Even though you're making a living and doing all that, you're on automatic. You can handle that. You don't need to worry about that, and you can fit yourself in. All right? That's what this is all about. This is why, first of all, read how I did it in Guided, how I did it. This book will change your life. And then how you do it, this book, My Guided Journey, will restore your life. Okay?
That's good. All this acceptance thing as you go through high school and college, that's what makes college and high school reunions so interesting.
It is, Ray. Yeah. And most of all, see, what people will do when they go to those is they'll sit back and they'll judge and laugh at everybody else. Okay? If you're doing that, you haven't learned anything. You're over here. You're over here, okay? If you're complete, if you have your real self working with you here, and you meet these kids, when you see these kids grown up now as adults, you're going to look at them and go, I see what happened there now. Back then, I can see what happened. When you work through this and you identify what happened in your life and you put it together, and then we help you identify what happened along the way so you can then make course corrections and better choices and live the life you intended before you got here. When you look at those kids grown up at the high school reunion, you'll just remember yourself. You won't be laughing at them at all. You will remember yourself. That's the healthy approach, you guys.
It'll bring back how you felt when you were with them going to school every day.
Exactly. And it's not the kid's fault, okay? Whatever happened, because we all take bumps and scrapes along the way in those days. It's not their fault. They were just as confused as you were. Even the popular kids were. In fact, the popular kids were scared the most.
I can believe that.
They had the most to lose. And a lot of them, that was the highlight of their entire life, is that popular senior, junior year. That was it.
The highlight of their life.
They could never have it. They could never have that feeling again where they were looked up at as a god. Okay, that's tough, So what's their lesson in something like that? Their lesson is that huge, huge void, right? they'd feel after they got into the real world and they started back at nobody, right? Okay, now they're starting to reach for their real self because that's what's missing, you see. That's what's been missing all along.
That is what makes the reunions interesting. I've gone to a few, and we're going to be going to one in 2 years.
I know.
My 50th.
Oh.
50th. Most of the people.
And this is what we do when we go to those, you guys, is we go to the, and I'm glad you brought that up. You go to those reunions and you look at yourself because you guys were all innocent. You really were. None of you had more advantage than the other, you know. And you were all learning at the same time. That was your group that you came in with, okay? And you guys agreed, believe it or not, to come into this life together and be at that time together to learn how you learned, you know? It's interesting. It doesn't stop.
Well, you know, you go to these and you start to feel at these reunions just like you felt in high school or college or whatever. But that's what the journal does. I mean, the journal walks you back, each one of these pages walks you back to that particular time in your life to make you feel like you did then.
Yeah, to make you remember, to help you remember. That's a very good point, Ray. So if you've gone to a family or a high school reunion, or you're going to be going to one, man, you are going to understand so much more when writing your truth out in this journal. Again, in earlier videos, I've reinforced this. I'm going to say it again. You do not want to write in your journal with emotion and from the standpoint of being a victim, okay? That's over here. That's this world. Emotion and victim. You want to come from a higher place, okay, where the real you resides. And that's feeling and just what you know is true, the truth, your urge, what drives you, okay? That's what you want to do here. It's about not taking it personally. When you no longer take things personally, yourself is coming back real strong, okay? You've got to pull back in order to learn how to do this. You have to pull back when something's going on and you're getting attacked or somebody's confronting you or saying something to you. You have to just let them vent, do what they're doing. Don't get involved in it. Don't let your ego come to your rescue, okay? Because it won't be rescuing you. It'll be getting tangled up in all that fear and ego and need to be right and all this kind of stuff. And you will definitely be a victim. The opposite of being a victim is to not take it personally, okay? It's the high road. It's being who you are. It's your truth, okay? So you've got to stay true to this. And when you hear this going on or whatever, just let them move through it, okay? And don't attach yourself to it. And don't let your ego try to save you. Don't let it do it. It doesn't do a good job. That's not its job. If it's doing its best job, it's not that. Its best job is when your real self comes in to play and it starts living out its intention, the reason it came here, and your ego gets behind that. That's the key.
Because that's where these reunion things, when they were teenagers in high school, that's where your ego, when you have these reunions, that's where the ego kicks back in harder than ever. Well, you remember when we did this? You remember when we went there? Remember what happened when we did that?
It's like a life review, isn't it, Ray?
It is like a life review, but you know what I always do? I always tell them, no, I don't remember that. Yeah, it's like it's not an important part of my life.
That is interesting. So it didn't stop time for you.
Right.
You just kept moving through it.
All these stories that they tell.
That they got glued to.
That's the glue that holds their life together at that point.
Yeah, it stops time. See, for Ray, he didn't allow that to stop time for him when he was a teenager, but he remembered it when the kid brought it up at the reunion, right?
Yeah, I remember what they did.
But instead of Ray's ego kicking in, trying to save him, he just said,
no, I don't remember.
See, this is the intelligence of your real self. it didn't get tangled up in that, didn't get sucked into it, didn't get drawn into it, all right? That kept it clean. That was very good, Ray.
It didn't. I'm not judging them or for
No.
anything like that, and I didn't have my ego invested in
Right. That
going
was
to that
good.
party or this party, and who could bring the beer and who could do that, and
Yeah.
so I mean, and I went to an all boys high school, so those were some pretty big egos,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was an odd child too. Did you ever know that?
I don't know that.
Yeah, I was a very odd child because when I was in high school, I was reading self-help books.
That is odd, Ray.
I didn't read too many of my school books. You know, I
Yeah.
did enough to get by, however, but I read a lot of self-help books.
Do you remember the books you read, Ray?
Think and Grow Rich, and all the ones that were popular at that time. You know,
Yeah.
Friends, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and
Yeah. Yeah.
all the ones that were popular, you know, in the '60s.
Yeah.
And then I never stopped. I mean, I followed. You know, I read all Wayne Dyer stuff as he became popular, and
Right.
you know, went to all the Tony Robbins things later on in life, and still have the burn marks on my feet. No,
But that's right, you know.
I
So-
mean, I was an odd child. No, I didn't know anybody that read.
That's
that I went
right.
to school that read self-help books.
That's right. So, you know, you guys, if you were fascinated about things like astrology or horoscopes or stuff that was different, that was your calling. That was a part of you coming through, letting you know that this is something you can't deny, something you can't say is not true, something you need to explore, look into, enjoy, include in your life, in this world, and turn that into your magic, into your into what you have to offer the world, in what you're good at. Okay, your method. Okay, your formula. That's what you do. You come up with your own. Everybody does.
But this whole thing about plateauing, I think, becomes more and more evident as you get older, and you begin to rethink your life.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
you go to these reunions and say, "Oh, what have you done since high school?" Well, I went to this great college and I became a CPA, and I've worked with numbers for the last 50 years. And you can hear it in their voice
Yeah, I know.
that they might have made good money at it, they might have went to a good school, but however, what did they really do to improve themselves, or what did they really do to be of service to others where they didn't get paid? You know, I don't know. So,
Well, that calling that Ray's talking about, it usually doesn't hit people until they're older, and the reason for that is we're so in this society, we're so driven to become a success. Okay, go to college, go to school, and then become something, right? Go to work for somebody or something like that. Okay, we're so driven to do that. Have a family, have kids, you know, all the things that drive you, you know, a great car, a beautiful home, you know, those things came first. Those things were the first things that you had to get out of the way. Imagine your life had you not lived through those things. I can't imagine mine. I'm glad I had the opportunity to experience all that, because you know what? I'm done now, and it feels good, and I'm not missing anything. And everything we're doing, the project and all the things that we do, and the teaching and everything that we do, the writing, it's what for me and for Ray, it's our soul's calling. It calls that forth right now. That's what's important right now. So there's always a time in your life where it's great to do these things, and it's great to do those things, and then those things. But after you turn 50 and you get into your 60s, you start to go, you know, that calling, that reason you came here, that real self of you, is really putting pressure on you now to get around to it, to do what you came here to do. You got what the guides call that, the house, all this other stuff. It's lessons, it's learning, it's part of what you came here to do. But it is distractions, okay?
they're all distractions.
Yeah, and it's distractions, but you've got to go through it all so you don't feel like by the time you get to this point in your life where you're living out your destiny, that you didn't miss something, okay? If you leave this world, the whole point to this world, you live it all the way, you do everything you came here to do and experience. And when you leave without regrets, okay? You are free to go. You've got nothing holding you back, no attachments. You're not ever stuck, okay? So
I think the term empty nesters is an interesting term because you get in their 50s, their kids are gone, they're out of college, they're got jobs, some of them got married, they moved away, and all of a sudden they're sitting in this big house and they realize how empty their life is in this huge house. And that's about the time when a lot of them reconnect with themselves,
right,
and they become the artists they always wanted to be, and they start painting, or they start taking music lessons, or
they start writing, or they
start writing,
right, whatever, or some people go into doing something like teaching, something they couldn't afford to do because it didn't make enough money, but now that they don't need the money, they do it because they always loved it.
We met somebody like that the other day, that woman at the gym. She's about our age, and she's retired, and her husband's retired. He's been CEOs of companies all his life.
Yeah.
And he's been very successful, and they've had a very good life. But he retired and drove himself crazy and went back.
You mean because he was bored?
He always wanted to be a teacher, so now he's teaching high school.
Okay, so the difference there, what Ray's talking about, is this guy moved through a life of success and into a life of significance.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what he did, and that's what this is all about. This is the whole point. We move through our successes, okay? You got to write down what happened in those early years, okay? So you can be fully present. Your whole self is activated now, not just part of you over here, but all of you now, okay? And when you have that, you're working from that, you are being true to yourself. No matter what you do, you will be a success. No matter what, you can't miss. It's the fastest way to success. It's also the fastest way to significance in this life, which is the reason you came here.
And once you get the significance, you know you're accepted.
By yourself. Okay, first of all, you are the one that has to approve of what you are becoming first. And you know what, you guys? It won't matter what anyone else thinks. Some people will like you and some people won't. And it's the way it is, okay? You've got to be true to yourself. That's the number one thing. That's the number one rule. Because only when you're true to yourself can you do your best work.
That's true.
And that if you're not doing your best work, you're faking it. And that's not why we're here.
I fully expect to meet guys I went to high school with who were the artistic types, the artists. The artists who moved to New York City or San Francisco, and they're still doing it. I mean, they're still there.
Wow.
And
well, see, that could be a situation where that person came in and they were able to take the gift that they knew they were going to give to the world. They kept themselves in one piece, okay? And they, right off the bat, instead of just going out and making a living, going to college to get an education, make a living, make a lot of money, have a house, have a wife, a husband, kids, all the things, okay? Someone like that discovered themselves early, became that intention early in their life, and when they got to this point in their life where they're 50, 60 years old, they don't have a great big shift going on. It's just one big continuum for them because they've always done what their souls required, okay? They've always been true to themselves, right to the core of their being. So they don't have to, take a look like the guy you were talking about where he worked in these corporations and then he retired and got bored and then he became a school teacher and said he was going to be a school teacher.
He says he's going to teach till the day he dies.
Because now he's doing something of significance, all right? So it doesn't mean that you just get to do it in your later years. You might be one of those people that start off doing that. That happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And if you haven't done it up to this point, you have not missed it. You haven't missed it. Go back and get My Guided Journey. It's a free download on my website, lindadeir.com, right on the homepage. And get to work on part 2, the journey part of this journal. The journal part comes in part 3, where you start journaling what's going on in your life every day, your dreams, the intuition you're getting, the insights, that gut feeling, that all of a sudden knowingness you got. It came from somewhere. There was a joke the other day. Ray was on one of the websites, and how did the one guy say about the guides? It was a funny joke about.
A similar thing is, I know the voices aren't real, but sometimes they come up with some really good ideas.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
There you go.
Yeah, they come up with some really good ideas. So it's these ideas that, and Ray was saying earlier, where sometimes you take the credit for those ideas. The downside of that is then you once again push yourself away. That part of you that's always there, speaking with you, giving you insight and letting you know where you are and what course correction you need, maybe a 10% correction, to be true north and be on your path and doing what you came here to do, or maybe not. Maybe they're just like, okay, everything's good, smooth sailing, blue skies, calm seas. You're heading in the right direction. Have nothing to say, just keep going, And you won't, if you don't get insights and stuff like that, it's because you're already there. You're fine. But if you're getting insights and you're pushing it down and you're pushing it away, it's what you did when you were young. It's the same behavior you had when in this world, when somebody questioned who you were talking to when you were a little tiny child, and you didn't know what to tell them. And instead of trying to understand that it was okay, it was really happening and it was real, you pushed it away because you didn't want to have to explain it or look silly to everybody. So it goes back to the same thing, insecurities, We get, however insecure you were when you first started out in this world is probably still with you today to a large extent. And by doing this work, you will work through those insecurities and finally understand them. And you won't have anger, you won't have regret, you won't feel like you missed anything. Your whole world will open up and everything will be available to you. It will be like the seas opened.
Okay, we're almost out of time. So they know where they can get the journal, and where can they go to see the rest of the videos that they may be missed?
Okay, so to see the rest of the videos we did, this will be 13, and this will be on our website tonight. Go to lindadeir.com and go to the blog at the top. And when you get to the blog page, on the right side where it says categories, go down to My Guided Journey is what we called it. And click on it and you'll find all the videos, including the opening video where I talk about how this journal works and where you can get the journal as well. And
how much does this journal cost?
It's really expensive, Ray. It's priceless. It's free.
It's free.
Okay, so, and I was guided by my guides to offer My Guided Journey, the journal. It's both a journey in part 2 and the journal in part 3. In part 3 is where you start journaling your day-to-day things that are happening, the magic in your life, the dream you had, the insight you got, that in the shower when you got that great idea, it didn't come from you, it came through you, all right? Write it in your journal and keep it going chronologically and date it and just keep it going. Now we're going to be doing these on Thursdays on Facebook Live to keep this going, to support you guys in you restoring your life. This is how you do it. My Guided Journey.
Very good. All right.
All right, you guys. So tomorrow, next week, we're going to be here, same place, same time. So do join us. We'll be on page 14. The Search Begins is the name of that one. I've written a series of videos in support of the readers of My Guided Journey, the companion journal to my flagship book, Guided. Each week on Facebook Live, I talk about your journey back to the beginning when you first made contact with your spirit guides and angels. They haven't gone anywhere even when you ignored them or didn't realize they were there. In these Thursday Facebook Live videos with me, you learn how to journal your own hidden knowledge, documenting your life journey, revealing who you really are and why you are here. When you follow this, you not only get your life back, but you will never doubt yourself again. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.